She found this dying white wolf rotting from silver chains. Then it woke up. Alara felt it the moment she stepped beyond the old stone path. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the trees themselves were watching her. Moss-covered trunks leaned inward, their roots twisting like sleeping serpents beneath the soil. No birds sang here. No insects stirred. This place was forbidden. The villagers called it the Valley of Chains, a land cursed by old kings and broken promises. They said monsters lived here, creatures born of betrayal and dark magic. Alara had heard the stories since childhood, whispered beside firelight and spoken with fear. But she had still come. Her basket was light on her arm, filled with herbs meant to heal fever and pain. Her village was poor and healers were rare. Alara had learned long ago that survival often required courage others did not have, or foolishness. She stopped when she smelled it. Blood, not fresh, but old, thick with metal and sorrow. Her breath caught as she followed the scent through a line of broken stone pillars, half swallowed by vines. And then she saw it. The wolf. It lay at the center of the ruins, massive and pale as moonlight. Its white fur was stained dark with dried blood, its body stretched unnaturally as if it had been forced into stillness. Heavy silver chains wrapped around its limbs and neck, glowing faintly with cruel runes carved by human hands. Alara froze. The creature was enormous, larger than any wolf she had ever seen. Its chest rose slowly, painfully, each breath a struggle. One ear was torn, its side marked with old wounds that never fully healed. The silver burned into its flesh, blackening the skin beneath. It was dying. Her heart pounded. Every story she knew screamed at her to run. Silver chains were not used for animals. They were used for cursed beings. Kings punished by magic. Beasts that once wore crowns. But as she looked closer, fear twisted into something else. Sadness. The wolf's eyes were closed, but its face was not twisted in rage. There was no snarl, no sign of madness, only exhaustion, endless quiet suffering. "Alara," she whispered to herself, "you should leave." Her feet did not move. She stepped closer, slowly, carefully, as if the creature could hear her thoughts. The chains rattled softly in the wind, a sound like morning bells. She knelt. The heat of the silver was strong enough to feel from a distance. Her skin tingled, warning her away. Magic hummed through the air, old, heavy, royal. "This is wrong," she murmured. "Whatever you are, they wanted you to suffer." The wolf did not move. Alara reached into her basket and pulled out a cloth soaked in healing oil. Her hand trembled as she stretched it toward a wound on the wolf's side. The moment the cloth touched fur, the silver rune nearby flared brighter. Pain shot through her fingers. She gasped and pulled back, staring at her burned skin. Tears stung her eyes, not just from pain but from anger. "They chained you and left you here," she said softly, "to rot." The word felt cruel even as she spoke it. The forest wind shifted. Clouds moved across the sky, dimming the light. Alara felt suddenly very small. Still, she could not leave. She noticed one chain, older than the rest, cracked, weak. Her heart beat faster. "No," she told herself. "That's madness." If the villagers found out, they would exile her. If the curse reacted, she could die. Every warning screamed in her mind. But the wolf let out a low sound, not a growl but something broken, a breath that trembled like grief. That sound decided everything. Alara wrapped her cloak around her burned hand and reached for the cracked chain. The moment she touched it, pain exploded through her arm. She bit her lip to keep from crying out. "Just one," she whispered. "I'll free just one." She pulled. The chain resisted, glowing brighter, the runes screaming silently against her touch. Her knees shook, her vision blurred. Then, snap, the chain broke. A wave of force knocked Alara backward. She hit the ground hard, gasping for breath. The air surged like a storm, leaves lifting into the sky. The wolf shuddered. Its chest rose sharply as if air had finally reached deep inside its lungs. The remaining chains clattered, pulling tight as the magic shifted. Alara stared, heart racing. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I didn't mean. The wolf's eyes opened. They were not the eyes of a beast. They were silver gray, sharp and aware, filled with pain and something far older than fear. The gaze locked onto her face. Alara forgot how to breathe. The wolf did not move, but its eyes followed her as she scrambled to her knees. A deep sound rolled from its chest, not threatening but filled with warning and confusion. "You're awake," she whispered. The magic in the air thickened. Thunder rumbled in the distance, though the sky was clear. Alara slowly stood, hands raised. "I won't hurt you, I swear." The wolf's gaze burned into her, searching, judging. Then, impossibly, its lips parted. A voice emerged. Low, broken, human. "Alara." Her name echoed through the ruins. She staggered back, terror flooding her veins. You shouldn't know that." The wolf's breath shook. "You broke the chain." Her knees gave way and she fell to the stone. "You can speak," she whispered, tears spilling freely now. "I was asleep," the voice said, strained as if each word cost him pain. "Dying slowly." The wind howled around them. Alara pressed her palms to the ground, trying to understand. "What are you?" The wolf closed his eyes briefly, as if remembering something long lost. "A king," he said. "Once." Her heart thundered. "A curse," he continued. "A punishment for mercy." The silver chains rattled violently now, reacting to his awakening. The runes glowed brighter, angrier. Alara looked around in panic. "The chains, they're reacting. I'm sorry, I didn't know." "They will come," the wolf said quietly. "Those who bound me." Fear wrapped around her spine like ice. "Then I'll hide you," she said without thinking. The wolf's eyes snapped back to hers, sharp and intense. "You must leave." "No," she said, stronger than she felt. "I won't." The ground trembled beneath them. From far away, horns sounded, low, cruel, and unmistakably human. The hunters had felt the magic break. The wolf pulled against the chains, pain ripping through him as his body shook. "If they find you here, you will suffer for my curse." Alara clenched her fists, her burned hand still aching. "Then let me choose." The wolf stared at her, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. The silver runes flared brighter than ever, and the valley screamed. The valley's wind had grown sharp with magic. Alara's cloak clung to her shoulders, wet from the sudden drizzle, but she did not notice. Her eyes were fixed on the wolf. Kalian, he had said his name was, though she could hardly believe it. His silver-gray eyes, piercing and haunted, never left her face. "You shouldn't be here," Kalian said again, his voice low, heavy with fatigue. He had risen to his full height, though his body still bore the strain of the chains. Even in his wolf form, he was massive, a creature of impossible strength. Yet something about him, his pain, his sorrow, made him fragile in a way no human could imagine. "I couldn't leave you," Alara whispered, taking another cautious step closer. "I saw you and I couldn't just walk away, not after what they did to you." Kalian's eyes narrowed. His lips pressed into a line, but his body did not shift away. Something in his gaze softened just slightly. "You don't understand," he said. "These chains, they were more than punishment. They were meant to keep me from remembering who I am, from becoming what I once was again." Alara's heart quickened. There was so much in those words, so much history, but she could feel it in the air, the power, the sorrow, and the curse that hung like a shadow over him. She had only just broken one chain. What would happen if the rest came loose? "I don't care," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I don't care if it's dangerous. I'll help you, Kalian." He let out a long, low breath. The sound was more wolf than man, but it carried emotion she could feel. Anguish, anger, loneliness, all rolled into one massive being that had suffered for centuries. "You do not know what you are saying," he warned. "Even being near me is dangerous. There are forces, hunters, magic, kings, who would kill both of us if they discover you with me." Alara stepped closer anyway. "Then let them come. I'm not leaving you to die chained in that valley." For a moment, he simply stared at her. Then, almost imperceptibly, he shifted his posture. His ears flicked back, tail lowering, the tension in his muscles easing slightly. "You are foolish," he said softly. but perhaps you are the only one foolish enough to see me for what I truly am." The rain fell harder, pattering on the stones and dripping off the leaves, and for the first time, Alara saw Kalian's fur glisten in the wet moonlight. It was white, pale as bone, but streaked with dark lines from blood and grime. He was magnificent and tragic. "I need you to trust me," Alara said. She reached out a trembling hand, keeping her distance. "Let me help, please." For a long moment he simply looked at her. Then he lowered his massive head, letting her touch the fur at his shoulder. Her fingers sank into the thick coat, and she felt the tremor of life beneath it, the slow, uneven pulse of a creature fighting against centuries of pain. "You are braver than anyone I have ever met," Kalian said quietly, "or perhaps more foolish." Alara smiled faintly. "I've never been afraid of the truth." That night she stayed in the valley. She had lit a small fire near the ruins, careful not to burn the old stones. Kalian lay a few feet away, restless, shifting between crouching and lying flat. Every now and then his eyes flicked toward her, alert and calculating. "You will not sleep," he said. "I will," she replied. "And you should try, you need rest." He gave a low, rumbling sound that might have been a laugh or a growl. "Sleep is not for kings cursed into beasts," Alara frowned. "Then maybe it's time someone reminded you what it feels like to be human, even if only a little." For the first time, Kalian's gaze softened completely. There was something in her, a warmth, a courage that stirred long-forgotten parts of him. He had been alone for centuries, trapped by silver, chained by betrayal, and every living thing had whispered fear at the sound of his name. Yet here was someone not afraid, someone who saw him not as a monster, but as a being deserving of mercy. And that mercy was dangerous. The next morning, the valley trembled with the approach of strangers. Alara was the first to see them, riders in black cloaks, silvered weapons glinting in the weak sunlight. Their horses moved silently, but the aura of authority and deadly intent radiated from them like a blade in the air. "They are hunters," Kalian said, his voice low, almost a growl, "sent by the throne to finish what was begun. If they see me, there will be no mercy." Alara's heart raced, but she did not panic. "We can hide," she said. "We can move to the trees, the old paths. You can outrun them." Kalian's eyes darkened. "Outrun, perhaps. Outwit, maybe. But they are cleverer than you imagine. They know the magic. They have hunted the cursed for centuries." Alara swallowed her fear. "Then we fight," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We fight together." He did not respond immediately. Instead, he shifted, lifting his massive body with a grace that belied his size. His wolf form was a creature of both beauty and terror. Muscles rippled beneath pale fur. Every movement was power restrained, like a storm barely contained. "I warned you," Kalian said finally. "And yet you choose this path." "I choose you," Alara said softly. For a moment he hesitated. Then, with a suddenness that almost shook her, he turned and sprinted, bounding through the valley with her close behind. Trees blurred past them, roots catching at her feet, but Kalian's strength carried her forward. They ran through the ruins, over stone bridges broken by time, and under arches carved with long-forgotten symbols. The hunters followed, their horses like shadows, relentless and silent. Every so often one raised a hand and a silver light arced toward them. Kalian dodged with impossible speed, but even his power had limits. "Alara," he barked, his voice halfway between human and beast. "Do not fall behind." She pushed harder, heart pounding, until she felt as if her lungs would burst. But she did not let go of the magic she had felt when she touched him, something ancient, protective, alive. They reached a narrow ravine, the stones slick with rain. Kalian paused, eyes scanning the hunters. "Here," he said, low and urgent. "We can lose them if you trust me." Alara nodded, hands gripping the edge of a boulder. She had never been more afraid in her life, but she did trust him. She had no choice. The moment was larger than either of them, a moment of life, magic, and survival. With a single bound, Kalian leapt across the ravine. Ilara followed, heart in her throat, and landed with a painful thump on the other side. Behind them the hunters slowed, reluctant to risk the jump, giving them a brief lead. But Kalian did not slow. His form shifted violently, muscles straining as if the curse inside him resisted the freedom of movement. His eyes glowed faintly silver. The magic within him stirred and flickered with raw power. "Ilara," he said, his voice shaking, "you should not have come. You are in danger beyond imagining." "I am here," she said firmly, "and I will not leave." A sound of anguish rolled from his chest, soft, almost human. He looked at her, and for the first time his wolf eyes seemed to reflect more than pain, they reflected longing. "You may not survive this," he whispered. "The curse, the hunters, everything is against you." Ilara met his gaze, and her resolve hardened. "Then we face it together." The night came quickly, and the forest swallowed them. Shadows stretched and twisted, the wind carrying whispers of the past. They reached a small, hidden grove, covered by ancient trees whose branches tangled like protective arms. Here, Kalian finally allowed himself to rest. Ilara tended his wounds again, pressing her hands to his fur, feeling the pulse of life beneath it. He did not speak for a long while, but she could sense his mind racing, the memories of centuries weighing on him. Finally, he shifted, human voice breaking through the beast's form. "You are, unlike any human I have ever known, brave, foolish, merciful. Perhaps this is why I survived." Ilara smiled faintly. "Perhaps," she said, "or perhaps we were meant to find each other." Kalian's eyes softened, almost unbearably, but the silver glow in his veins flared violently, reminding her that the curse was still alive, still hungry, and still dangerous. She looked up at him. "We will face it, together." A low growl rumbled from the shadows beyond the grove. The hunters had found the scent. Kalian rose instantly, tension radiating from him. He shifted halfway between wolf and man, muscles coiling like springs. His eyes met hers, sharp and warning. "They come," he said. "We will fight or we will run, but you must be ready." Ilara's hands tightened into fists. Her heart pounded, fear mixing with determination. "I am ready," she said. Kalian's lips curled into a faint, almost human smile. "Then we begin," he whispered. The wind carried the hunters' approach, and the forest trembled with the pulse of impending battle. Ilara looked at Kalian, the dying white wolf, the cursed king, and knew that nothing would ever be the same. Together they would survive, or together they would fall. And somewhere deep in the valley, the silver chains began to stir once more, whispering promises of power, vengeance, and secrets yet untold. The forest had grown silent after the hunters had vanished, or at least, after they had retreated into the shadows. Night fell over the valley, and the air was thick with magic. Ilara and Kalian sat in the hidden grove, the last glow of firelight flickering across his fur, now damp and glistening under the moon. Kalian shifted restlessly. Even in his wolf form, there was something fragile about him now, a tension that pulsed through his massive body. He had survived centuries in chains, but freedom, however brief, was new and dangerous. Ilara studied him, her fingers hovering above his fur, unsure if she should touch. "Kalian," she said softly, "tell me why you were cursed. I need to understand." He lowered his massive head, ears flicking, eyes distant. "Long ago," he said, his voice a low rumble, "I was a king. My people trusted me, my throne respected me, but the crown carries a price. One day a sacrifice was demanded, an innocent life to preserve my reign. I refused." Ilara's chest tightened. "And that led to this." Kalian's gaze sharpened. "Yes, betrayal runs deeper than the darkest night. Those closest to me, the advisors I trusted, the council I called family, they bound me in silver and cursed me. I was to rot, to fade into nothing, until all memory of me died." The fire flickered between them. Ilara reached out, brushing her hand along his shoulder. His fur felt warm beneath her palm, alive with trembling strength. "You didn't deserve that," she said. "No one would." He growled softly, not in anger but as a sound of grief. Perhaps. Or perhaps I did for loving mercy more than power. A king cannot show weakness, they said, but I could not kill. I could not allow innocence to die for a crown. Her heart ached for him. The centuries of suffering, the chains, the solitude, all of it reflected in those silver-gray eyes. "Then I'll help you," she whispered. "I don't care what comes. You won't face this alone." For a moment, Kalian's wolf form softened. His massive head lowered to her hands. "I have been alone for centuries," he said, voice rough and trembling. "I do not know how to exist with another beside me. My curse and my anger, it will consume you if you stay too close." Alara smiled faintly, though her hands shook. "I'll risk it. I already have." He stared at her in silence, his body taut with wariness and desire, fear and longing. Centuries of imprisonment had taught him to trust no one. And yet, here was a human, small, fragile in body, yet immense in courage, touching him with compassion rather than fear. The moon moved across the sky and Kalian finally exhaled, a sound that mixed wolf and human breath. "You may be my undoing or perhaps my salvation." The days that followed were a trial. The valley was not safe. Magic ran wild, the remnants of Kalian's curse reacting unpredictably. Sometimes his human form would surge out of control, shifting partially into wolf mid-motion, his strength frightening and uncontrolled. Alara learned quickly to anticipate him, to touch him gently, to calm him with words when the curse throbbed too strongly. One morning, as mist curled among the stones, Kalian finally spoke of the hunters. "They will return," he said. "They have not forgotten. They will follow the scent of silver and blood until they find us, and when they do," his voice faltered, "it will not be mercy they offer." Alara's stomach tightened. "Then we prepare, we hide, we fight if we must, but we face them together." He looked at her, his eyes heavy. "You are brave beyond reason. Perhaps that is why you survive near me." There was a pause, the forest holding its breath. Kalian moved closer, the human and wolf forms shifting subtly, as if the curse itself was unsettled by her presence. "Why do you care for me?" he asked finally, voice low, almost pleading. "I am a creature of pain, cursed and broken. There is nothing, no future, that belongs to me." Alara's hand found his massive muzzle. She placed her palm gently against it. "You are not broken," she said firmly. "You are alive. You are more than your curse, and I see you." He stared at her, and for a long moment it seemed as if the weight of centuries pressed into his gaze. Then a sound, a low, almost mournful growl, escaped him. It was part relief, part pain. "You are dangerous," he whispered, "and yet I cannot push you away." Alara's heart ached at the confession. "Then don't," she said softly. That night the hunters returned. Their horses' hooves were muffled by the forest floor, but their presence was undeniable, a ripple of tension through the air, sharp and metallic. Kalian sensed them before she did, muscles coiling, silver veins pulsing faintly beneath fur. "They are here," he growled. "And they will not wait." Alara gripped a tree, heart racing. "What do we do?" Kalian's eyes narrowed. "We run, and if they catch us, we fight." The chase began. Kalian's wolf form was a blur, moving faster than humanly possible. Alara ran beside him, her heart pounding, muscles screaming, yet she kept pace. The forest blurred around them, shadows stretching, trees bending under the weight of magic. A silver light arced through the trees, one of the hunters attempting to strike. Kalian shifted mid-leap, his body coiling like a spring, and the magic of his curse exploded outward, knocking the light aside. "Hold on," he barked. Alara did, clinging to his back as they crossed broken stones and fallen logs. Each step was a battle against fear, against exhaustion, against the realization that every moment could be their last. Finally, they reached a hidden ravine covered by moss and roots. Kalian paused, muscles trembling. His eyes flicked to hers. "Here," he said. "They will not follow this path, too dangerous." She nodded, barely breathing. "I trust you." He gave a low, almost human sigh. "You should not." In the safety of the hidden ravine, Kalian shifted partially into human form, collapsing beside her. His chest rose and fell with deep, labored breaths. "You are reckless," he said softly, "and yet I feel less alone." Alara smiled faintly. "You're not alone anymore." For a moment, silence fell, broken only by the soft sound of the forest. But beneath the peace, something stirred, the curse, ancient and insistent. It pulsed beneath Kalian's skin, feeding off his pain, demanding control, threatening to devour him entirely. "I feel it," Kalian murmured, pressing a hand to his chest. "The curse, it knows we are close to breaking it. It fights. It will not give me peace easily." Alara touched his hand. "Then we fight it together. I won't let it win." He looked at her, eyes shining with silver light. "You are foolish," he whispered. "And yet perhaps I need that foolishness. Perhaps it is the only thing that will save me." Days passed. Kalian shared fragments of his past, the betrayal that had bound him, the friends who turned into enemies, the throne that demanded sacrifice. And Alara shared herself, the loss of her parents, the village that feared magic, the courage that often left her alone in the woods. Their bond grew in quiet moments, in shared silence, in the brush of hands and fur. Trust blossomed like fire in the darkness. But the curse was never idle. Each time Kalian allowed himself to approach human form, each time he felt warmth or emotion, the silver veins beneath his skin glimmered, restless, threatening to consume both their lives. "Ilara," he said one night, voice trembling. "If this curse, if it claims me, it may claim you too. My life is mine no longer, and neither is yours if you stay." "I stay," she said simply. "I see you, I am here, that is enough." He stared at her, eyes filled with longing and terror, centuries of loneliness reflected in every line of his face. And then, something deep inside him shifted, a flicker of hope that had long been buried beneath silver and chains. But their peace was shattered the next morning. Smoke rose from the far edge of the forest, a signal, a banner of black and silver, the mark of the hunters. They had found the scent, and their numbers were far greater than Kalian had expected. "They come," he growled, "and this time they will not hesitate. They will kill everything in their path." Alara's heart pounded, but she did not back away. She placed her hand on his fur, steadying him, steadying herself. "Then we fight," she said, "together." Kalian's eyes softened, a mix of relief, longing, and fear. "Together," he agreed. And as the hunters advanced through the mist, the cursed king and the brave girl stood side by side, ready to face a storm that had waited centuries for their arrival. The silver in Kalian's veins flared violently, the curse awakening fully in response to danger. Its hunger was palpable, its power terrifying, but for the first time in centuries, Kalian faced it with someone who refused to abandon him. And the valley trembled. The forest shivered under the weight of approaching doom. Smoke and dust curled through the trees where the hunters had advanced, their banners black and silver, glinting ominously in the weak morning light. Every branch seemed alive, every leaf trembling, as if the valley itself sensed the storm to come. Kalian stood at the edge of the hidden grove, his massive body tensed, muscles coiled, the silver veins beneath his fur pulsing like fire. His wolf form shifted constantly, as if the curse inside him protested the presence of another heartbeat beside his own. Alara stood close, hand brushing along his shoulder, steady and unwavering. "They will not wait," Kalian murmured, voice low and trembling. "Their orders are clear, bring me in, dead or alive." Alara's eyes met his. "Then we don't wait either, we end this together." He stared at her for a long moment. Centuries of fear, centuries of loss, centuries of chains, all reflected in his silver-gray eyes. "You may not survive this," he said, almost pleading. "I cannot guarantee it." "I will survive," she replied. "With you I will survive, I trust you." He gave a low rumble, a sound that was part wolf, part human, part something older and eternal. And for the first time in centuries, he felt not just fear but hope. The hunters emerged from the mist, moving in disciplined silence, weapons poised, eyes cold with the intent to kill. Kalian growled low and menacing, and the curse within him reacted, silver veins flaring along his limbs. Power surged through him, raw and dangerous, threatening to spill into the forest like wildfire. Alara gripped his fur, whispering, "Focus. Breathe. Not them, not the curse us." For a moment the raging storm of magic inside him seemed to pause, tethered by her voice, her presence, her courage. He lowered his massive head, eyes locking with hers. "Together," he whispered, and then the battle began. Kalian moved with impossible speed and strength, weaving between hunters, deflecting their silvered weapons, teeth and claws precise and controlled. Every motion was calculated, not out of hatred but defense. He did not kill, he merely disarmed, incapacitated, and protected Alara at all costs. The hunters underestimated him. They had counted on chains, on fear, on centuries of solitude. They had not counted on a wolf with the heart of a king, nor a girl who refused to be afraid. Alara moved as well, small and swift, guiding fallen hunters aside, tossing herbs with strange magical properties Kalian had taught her to use. Smoke and sparks flew, fire from the curse and the forest combined in chaotic harmony. And through it all, Kalian shifted between forms, human and wolf, neither fully one nor the other, a storm of strength and grace, driven by fury, love, and survival. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time seemed warped by magic and fear. Finally, the last hunters fell back, their confidence broken by the ferocity and intelligence of the cursed king and the courage of the girl beside him. Kalian collapsed on the forest floor, human form at last, chest rising and falling rapidly. Sweat, rain, and silver light glimmered across his skin. His eyes found Alara's, softening with exhaustion and gratitude. "You survived," he said, voice trembling, awe and disbelief mingling in his tone. "I did," she replied, smiling faintly, her hands on his chest. "Because you let me, and because I refused to leave." He studied her, centuries of loneliness reflecting in his gaze, and for the first time he allowed himself to hope. The curse had reacted to their bond, its power tamed not by chains, not by fear, but by compassion and trust. But the valley was not yet silent. In the distance, the smoke of the old throne rose. The royal council, the ones who had cursed him centuries ago, had learned of his survival. They sent emissaries, not soldiers, but envoys bearing the weight of authority and the threat of vengeance. Kalian rose slowly, silver veins dimming but still present, a faint reminder that the curse, though weakened, still lingered. Alara stood beside him, her courage as steady as his strength. "They will demand obedience," Kalian said, voice low, "or death. They do not know mercy." "Then we show them a different path," she said firmly, "the path of truth." He studied her, eyes searching. Then slowly he nodded. Together they approached the stone bridge leading to the throne's ruins, where history had marked his fall centuries ago. The council waited, haughty and unmoved by time, assuming power alone was enough. Kalian's voice carried through the mist. "I am Kalian," he said, strong and resonant. "Once I was your king, you cursed me for showing mercy. You bound me in silver and left me to die. I return not for vengeance, but for truth. The crown is not yours to dictate. The people deserve justice, and I deserve freedom." The council exchanged whispers, fear flickering in their eyes. They had underestimated the curse's power, underestimated the bond that had formed between a girl and a wolf, underestimated hope. One of them stepped forward. "The curse still flows in your veins." "You cannot reclaim authority," Kalian's eyes flared silver. "Authority is not given, it is earned." The council faltered. The magic of centuries stirred in the valley, trees shifted, roots rising as if to protect him. The silver of the curse pulsed brightly, then faded, not as a threat but as a transformation. The chains were gone. The curse no longer consumed him. It had been reshaped by trust, courage, and love. Alara stepped forward beside him. The curse was never his weakness. It was a test, and he has passed. A hush fell. Even the wind seemed to pause. Kalian's human form stood tall, regal not in pride but in strength tempered by mercy. His wolf form shimmered faintly at the edges, a reminder of what he had survived and what he had become. The council bowed their heads, not out of respect but in recognition of the truth. Kalian had returned, not as a king seeking vengeance, but as a being forged by centuries of suffering, transformed by compassion, redeemed by love. Night fell again, calm now as the valley seemed to exhale. Kalian and Alara walked through the ruins, the moonlight silver on their faces. "You could have left," Kalian said softly. "You could have abandoned me when danger came." Alara smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I couldn't, and I would not." He looked at her, centuries of pain finally giving way to something softer, something human. "Then I am yours," he said, voice low, tender, "as much as I am mine. The curse has shaped me, but you have saved me in ways I never imagined." "I only stayed," she said, laughing lightly, "because I believe in you, always." For a long moment they stood together, the ruins quiet around them. No silver chains, no hunters, no curse. Just the valley, the moon, and the bond they had forged in fire, fear, and magic. "Will it ever truly leave you?" she asked softly, touching the faint silver lines that still shimmered along his skin. Kalian shook his head. "No, but it no longer controls me. It reminds me of what I survived and what we have built." Alara nodded, understanding. The past was a shadow, but their present was bright. Together they had transformed it into light. Dawn broke over the valley. Mist drifted lazily across the stones, and the first bird song in centuries filled the air. Kalian and Alara stood atop a hill overlooking the ruins, the wind gentle against their faces. "You have changed my world," Kalian said. "You have given me freedom and something I did not think I could feel again. Trust, hope, love," Alara smiled. "And you have shown me courage I never knew I had, strength that is not just in body but in heart." He reached out, taking her hand in his, human and wolf intertwined in a gesture of unity and devotion. "Let the world remember me as the White Wolf," he said softly, "not as a monster but as a king who chose mercy. And let them remember you, the one who saw me, who believed in me, who stayed." Alara's heart swelled. "Then let us walk forward," she said, "into the future we choose together." Kalian nodded. His wolf form shimmered faintly at the edges, silver fading into white, no longer a curse but a reminder of survival, resilience, and love. And as they walked side by side, the valley seemed alive with approval, the trees swaying, the wind carrying their story, the ruins whispering the legend of a girl and a wolf who had dared to defy fate, to face a curse, and to transform pain into redemption. The world would remember them, but in the quiet forest, under the soft light of the dawn, they simply held each other, alive, free, and bound by a love that no magic could undo.